Good afternoon. Thanks a lot for coming. It's a pleasure to see all of you today, and it's always a pleasure to be back at Europeana. So we have a very interesting subject today and a very packed agenda, so let's start right away. My co-host today is Tourski that I will present in a short moment. And we have two guests that will join us shortly online. We have two big goals today. One goal is to tell us about one project that we are running and we're very proud of. It's a cool project. And the second goal is to show you how we use this project to get inspiration and to start conceptualizing what this data space that everyone is talking about means, and to actually spell out what this data space is for us using the example of this project. So let's start. The project is, I forgot to present myself. My name is Pavel. I am running a Jewish Heritage Network, the agency, non-profit agency for Jewish digital heritage projects. We are the Jewish aggregator of Europeana, and we are doing different kinds of projects, some of them with Europeana, all related, unsurprisingly, to Jewish digital heritage. So this project was conceived in the summer of 2020 when the first corona wave was receding. The European Commission was aspiring to revive the European tourism, and what better can be done to revive European tourism if not to engage culture. Culture and tourism go hand in hand. So the cultural institutions and Europeana were thinking how to address this quest of the Commission. So we as JHN, Jewish Heritage Network, we suggested to develop a project that would develop guided, self-guided audio tours about Jewish heritage across Europe. What is a self-guided audio tour? It's a short, usually 1.5 hour walking experience in places of Jewish heritage with audio, with with stories about surroundings, supported and supplemented by by the digital heritage materials. So JHN was the perfect focal point of this project, but we also needed a network to really bring those tours across Europe as widely as possible. And we partnered with AEPJ, which is an organization for preservation and popularization of Jewish culture. And I would like Mark to tell us a couple of words about AEPJ. Mark is online.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me correctly? I hope. Yeah. Yeah. Very briefly. Very nice to meet you, everyone, today. We're really glad to have the opportunity of joining you this afternoon. Just to put you in situation, APJ is a network of institutions around Europe, which is gathering from regional governments to states to local ones, but also NGOs and other associations. So gathering several different kinds of institutions. Yeah, all of them with the purpose of spreading Jewish heritage and culture to several different kinds of audiences, from one side to tourism, despite you can be Jewish or not, but also to all the citizenship, with a way or as a way of enhancing the citizenship regarding the importance of this Jewish legacy in Europe. As you can see in the screen, in the slide, we have several kinds of types of routes being part of our network. Some of them are called the national ones, like the one that we are pointing out about Italy. Other ones are regional ones or thematic, which are focused on specific topics or specific cities where we can find some kinds of legacy that is spread. Finally, just to let you be in inspiration, also the APJ is promoting several kinds of activities around this heritage, from trainings for trainers to cultural, gastronomical experiences, as well as other ways of spreading the history and heritage that these sites are telling us. So today makes sense for us to be here to joining you, since the experience with our colleagues that is going to be explained has been very, very important for us as a way of providing support to all the members of the APJ, being able to get new tools to spread this storytelling. Yeah. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Mark. So you see, a network of very important Jewish, usually small and mid-sized Jewish organizations dealing with Jewish history and culture, but most of them very traditional profile, as Mark described. So usually not very much into the digital sphere. Now, what's important is that APJ is only one node in a network of 30, almost 40 roots, which are certified roots of the European Cultural Roots Organization of the Council of Europe. This is a huge network of roots, and each one of the roots is like marks. So we really have a representation here of several thousand touristic sites in Europe. And the idea of this project was to use our cooperation between GHN as the aggregator of Europeana and APJ as one Jewish root of this entire network, to think how we can build cooperation on large scale between Europeana as a whole and this huge network of touristic sites as a whole. And of course the organizations are very different. But maybe for what it takes here, we can think of this organization, the Cultural Roots of Europe, as a sort of Europeana of tourism. So we're thinking here how to build this cooperation. The project setup was for us very straightforward. On the one hand, we have headed by APJ and some other partners, content producer partners. We are producing guided tours, self-guided tours in Europe of Jewish places. And on the right-hand side, platform. And this is essential. To reach as many people as possible, we very consciously opted for not developing our own technology, as often happens in digital heritage projects, but to go with public open platforms, existing platforms. They have different business models, but they all deliver those content to the public. We are working with 3 platforms and are working with are engaging more platforms in the project to reach as many listeners as possible. So what we achieved? We achieved a very nice throughput. We are very proud of this. You can go to the website. We have 25 different guided tours of different about different Jewish subject themes in 15 different destinations in Europe, because some tours have more than one, some destinations have more than one tour. They are all multilingual, bottom top. They are the text, the voice. We have AI-produced voiceover. It's really a very cool project. And all these tours are available on all those platforms, apps and on websites. This is really very nice. But this, and we're very proud of this. And by the way, yeah, I think it's really nice that you can see one tour represented, how one tour looks on very different platforms. And that's the core of the project, that we are delivering one tour and publishing it on different projects where they could look differently because different platforms have different functionality. And here we come to the very important part that is the core of our discussion further on, the process of content distribution. And here I would like to invite Alex Raginsky, the tech lead of the project from Pangianic, Spanish company, our long-time technical partner, to describe us briefly, Alex, what entailed the content distribution the content production distribution process.
Hello everyone, glad to be here with you. Yeah, we faced multiple challenges as the tour production starts basically with engaging the organization. And the organization produces the heritage tour based on the materials that they have, the images and the knowledge that they possess about the local. So they produce the tour either in Clio or in Easy Travel platform. So this is the first step. They basically produce the tour, and then we integrate with the platform. We take the text from there and start processing it. Basically, if you can click on the next. So basically, each text of the tour is translated into 4 or 5 languages, depending on the original language, and then each tour is being voiced over again in the same language. So here we have the first step is the text. Then, as you see, the derivation of this text is basically the same text produced in 4 or 5 languages. Then comes voiceover. So all of this is automatic, and then we have the human feedback loop. Basically, each of the texts is being reviewed and retranslated if there are required fixes, and the same for voiceover. As you see, this project scales until some point, but then we come to the platforms. And again, we deploy each of the translated tool with the translated voiceover. We deploy it to each platform, and here we basically lose the control of our data. Basically, we don't know exactly which version on each platform when it was updated, and then it will be online. And again, we need, as the tool production is an iterative process, we again need to redo all this process once again and once again. And we are still in the process. We are in the middle of the tool updates as the project is still going on. So, this is with 25 tools. And if we talk about 100, 500, so we can see that this process is barely scalable. And that's why we come to the idea that other data sharing techniques are needed here.
Thanks, Alex. You took a bit of my part. So yes, as Alex described, the process of creation, upload, updates of the tool on the platforms is very time consuming. Every platform has sometimes its own requirements for the image size, for the length of the field, or for the exact composition and the data structure. So we bared with these challenges within our project. We have 25 tools. It was a task, but we did it. But now let's get back to the thinking of how we build a collaboration in scale between Europeana as the big network and the Cultures of Europe as the big network. We need to multiply this whole process by many more platforms. And there are many more platforms. There are national platforms, there are city platforms, they are museum platforms. We want to be on all of them. There are many commercial platforms. Of course, thousands of locations, and also a lot of different audiences. Sometimes the tour has a version, a cycling version, a walking version, a car version, etc. This doesn't scale. This is exponential growth, and if we want to manage this in the way we manage it now, that we upload the tour to every platform in EU, this just doesn't scale. Our project is 500,000. So how many projects? We can't be doing these projects more and more, right? This isn't the right approach to develop the tools for other places and other audiences. So we really need a different data sharing architecture. That was the main conclusion from our project. We do not think, we still think that using the platforms is the right choice, but it's not enough to be using the platforms. We also need a new data sharing architecture with the platforms. And of course, surprise, surprise, what this architecture can be. Let's call it a data space just for the sake of discussion and see if it fits the ideas that we had heard here this morning. So let's dream wild. What can be our ideal wish list for this data space that we are conceiving? First, we want to maintain only one version of content in one place. Let's call it original, sometimes it's called at source, but we want only one content to do all the changes there, and that's it. And we want these changes to propagate wherever this content is. We want to avoid vendor lock-in by platforms, because we want to get on the platform when we want to get off the platform when we want, and we want to do not be confined by the platform's terms, right? We want to have this freedom. We want to avoid data silos, because in fact, what is going on in this previous slide? We are creating more and more data silos that we need to maintain and update. And of course, this problem can't sound more familiar in Europeana, where we know that a perennial challenge of Europeana is building efficient data aggregation infrastructure, whereas now, with all the improvement, our current data aggregation is creating more and more data silos, these copies of data, which is so difficult to maintain. Harris talked this morning about collaboration. This is not new. We know there is demand for collaboration, but now this demand comes even stronger. And we know what collaboration means usually for us. We take the data to another place, we create another silos, we collaborate there, we create additional content, and then how often can we take it back, really integrate into the original source? It very rarely happens, we know that. And think about multiplying it by the different organizations, stakeholders, communities. The demand for collaboration is really something which makes us to think in totally different terms in terms of efficiency than we have today. Data format. We are grown up enough to realize that the ideal of one data format to rule them all will never happen. We've tried this, it's just not working. We want to have a data sharing architecture in which all the formats are welcome. Of course, the more we collaborate, on the same source, the more we need to control our data and to control what is going on with the data and where it is used and how it is collaborated. It means authorization, authentication, and tracking usage of data. The more our data is used in different platforms and different flows, the more we want to know and to control this usage and to get information about this usage. And finally, whenever something is happening on this data elsewhere, there are reviews, there are analytics, there are user feedback. We want to get this information on our source, right? If I get a review on my tour on different platforms, I want to have these all reviews together in one source and not scattered across platforms, because this describes the tour. So this all looks quite, yes, the most important one. The dream of Europeana. What is the dream of Europeana? We mentioned it this morning. As I understood it all these years, the dream of Europeana is to make content, as many cultural content accessible to as many people. Maybe we should reiterate what this dream is and whether this can serve it in any way. So this looks quite ambitious, but maybe you have ideas what else can be done, what else can be added to this list, or comments, other kinds of comments, or our guests online. Have we missed anything? Yes, please.
Yeah, one thing that I'm missing here is the word standards, standardization. You have data format inclusivity.
Yes.
You have data format inclusivity, which means enormous chaos, where you have everything.
Yep.
Is there no need for common standards?
We will talk about it. Okay. I will cover this question. It's a very good question.
Any questions online, Elena? Okay, then you will be always able to come back to this moment, but we can move on. So for us, this was quite a bold quest, and we are formulating here something very fundamental about using the platforms. We do want to use the platforms, but we want to do it on these terms. And who can be a better platform, a better partner to think about this and to dream about these further directions than a platform? And we were very lucky to have in Easy Travel, and Alex Tourski, finally I present him, Alex Tourski, my friend and colleague, the founder of Easy Travel, worldwide popular platform for tours, and we were very lucky to have him and his team engaged in this quest with us and reasoning together what needs to be done to the current world in order to fulfill also these ideal wishes that we have for the new data sharing architecture. So Alex, can you tell us, now it's your turn, tell us what we came up with.
Well, yes, it was quite a quest. Pavel came to us and said, guys, could you please do that? And you know, it's quite challenging questions, and we know that museums, and we are in museum world for more than 10 years, we know that museums for ages were fighting about it, and it's not easy. And I think we did it, and what we did, actually, yeah, you may call it data space, but actually we did a little bit more. We made Web3 data space, we call it this way. And yeah, that's the name. And how we did it? I'm going to demonstrate to this recreation process, yeah, how it actually happened. And by the way, when I will go step by step, please raise your hands, interrupt me. I really want it to be co-creation process, so don't be shy. And if you come back to this list of questions, the first one was, what was it? We want to have everything in one place. Yeah, it's button doesn't work. Yeah. We want to have everything in one place. This situation is a project as it was, as it is now. We keep data on computer and then we push everything here, and in this way we create a lot of data cells and we get into all these problems discussed by Pavel and Alex. And so the first request was we want to keep it in one place. And yeah, okay, let's keep it. And if instead of computer we get some kind of website, and then we just ask all the platforms, instead of pushing to them, we just ask them to come and pick it up there. Some kind of HTTP-like protocol, whatever. And of course, it will be a little bit more advanced website, more advanced HTTP protocol, but let's not talk about technology here. And also, let's talk this, call this website POP. This name was introduced by Mr. Sire Tim Berners-Lee, he already was mentioned today. Actually, he invented this technology. We are not the first here. So I will call this website pod. And here you will keep all your data and all platforms come here. Okay, the first task is done. We keep everything in one place. And if you change anything here, for example, your guided tour, then this guided tour will be picked up probably in 1 second, probably in 1 day, by all the platforms, not only 3, but any of them. They can come and pick up tour, interpret it, and demonstrate to their clients. Good, it was wish number 1. And wish number 2, avoid vendor lock-in by platforms. This is a very big thing. And you know that huge capitalization of platforms because they own us. And I'm a platform, and when I come to investors, the only question they ask me, Alex, how many clients do you have in your possession? Kind of slavery. So vendor lock-in is a really big issue. And we thought, okay, what can we do about it? Actually, we don't have to do anything about it. It's already addressed in the first place. So if data is here and not here, then platform come and pick up data from there. Data is not anymore at the platform side. Task is resolved, because if you put with Easy Travel, imagine I'm sitting here and create tour on Easy Travel. Easy Travel will put it here on this pod. And then I will switch to Clio and open the same tour in Clio. I will see exactly what was done by Easy Travel. I can continue with Clio. If I don't like Clio, I switch to Thematic Travel or any other platform, and I continue to work on the same tour through different platforms. It means that I can change platforms easily when I create tour. The same, people who use guided tour, they can use mobile application from any of the platform, and this mobile application will take it from there. So we have data at source, and we can change platforms like that. There is no lock-in at all. And actually, we have extra advantage, not only just getting rid of this lock-in, we have very interesting situation. Imagine all platforms now using exactly the same data, and they find themselves in very competitive situation. They have to compete, because right now as Easy Travel, when I come to people and then when I talk about platform, I give you numbers. I have million users, I have 50,000 content providers, I have, well, it's all in 100 countries, etc. I own users, content providers data. In this situation, I cannot tell it. The only, my pitch will be different. I'm Easy Travel, I have a new functionality of Quest, I have artificial intelligence, I can provide you with itineraries, with hotel booking, whatever. I have to demonstrate functionality advantage over my competitors. And that's what you want. You want us platforms to compete in front of you for your data. So, wish number 2 is resolved. What was wish number 3? Avoid silos data. Again, it's avoided automatically. Original data at source. Here, we have no data. Of course, technically, we'll have some data here, but it will be a cache, just a copy to provide you faster service. But original data is always there. No silos data ever. By the way, today it was discussed about carbon footprint of technologies. Imagine we squeeze the silos data only to originals. I bet that the amount of hard disk drives somewhere in Greenland will be quite shrink, because we don't need so much hard disk drive to keep all the silos data. So by diminishing amount of data, we definitely will reduce carbon footprint, for sure. And it's quite a real step. Wish number 4, demand for collaboration. That's an interesting one. Again, I don't have to invent anything. Data is here, platforms is here, but let's have a different look at the same schema. Okay. I'm using AdLib system. Good. With the AdLib system, I will change the picture of one specific exhibit. Of course, picture is here. My colleague open Easy Travel and creates guided tour using the same exhibit from museum, audio guide from museum. He or she will pick up this picture immediately. So this picture will be visible here at the moment I change it here. Very interesting. Then on Easy Travel, I will upload audio file for this exhibit. This audio file is kept there, and of course, AdLib will represent it immediately. So you see, whatever I do with one platform is reflected by another. Or another example, you create a new exhibit for your museum in AdLib. At the moment you create it, then your insurance company will say, oh, you acquired a new painting, do you want to insure it? So it can insure it automatically. And then your financial director through financial platform will see increased invoice. Nobody has to communicate about this new exhibit, invoices, whatever. It's all there. And all platforms work with the same data. And if Yeah, for example, you put your address information of your museum or institution on pod. Google Maps will immediately reflect it. You don't have to go to Google Maps and many other map platforms like TomTom, whatever, they will show it automatically. There is no efforts to put your museum on the map. Next time you move to another building, Google will pick it up automatically. So we have a very interesting world where a lot of people inside your organization, outside of your organization, using any platform they want, they work with the same data on your portal, and it's in your hands. Well, if you zoom out a little bit, we understand that there are many pods in different institutions, museums, etc., and that's your data space. That's what you want. All these pods represent this big amount of data these platforms work with. Let me tell you one thing which is probably not so obvious. Google, insurance companies, TripAdvisor, EasyTravel, Epic, none of these companies will ever have any database inside. They don't need database. All their data will be stored there, shared with others. So we come to the world where data exists on your pods, it doesn't exist in all these platforms. We discussed with Dutch Cadastre, for example. And they said, yeah, does it mean that Dutch Cadastre will not have database? Yes, it will. And they accepted that, yeah, it looks so. Dutch Cadastre is very fine with the fact that Cadastre data will build millions of pods of buildings. And that's where it all goes. So this data space, take data from here, no databases, it's all on the pods. And that's how we see data space for the future. Of course, it will be no special data space for culture, heritage. Please, question, I like it. Second question, lady, you first? Oh, please throw microphone to her. Carefully.
That's a very fascinating example. My name is Milena Dobreva. So just to make sure that we don't create complications in the language, when we discuss data spaces, we should think also in terms of data owners, data providers. So the users are here, they're clear. But with all these pods, who is an owner, who is a provider? And a very tricky point with the rights. So you mentioned the museum. When something gets an image, what happens if we pull data which have different rights? Can we still orchestrate them together?
Yeah. First of all, I will come to this question one of the next slides. But first question, who actually is provider of the data? Who owns the data? If you consider museum, for example, a museum has their own precious pod here. And it means that they pay for the spot like for the website. You pay for the website somewhere in clouds, you own it, it's yours. And point is that what we essentially did, we disconnected data from platforms. Now it's all together. I'm EasyTravel, I own your data. Although technically you may say, yeah, legally it belongs to you, but we know that if you put data to my platform, I own it in a way. But now you will own it. We platforms own nothing. We are just advanced aggregating browsers. You can change browsers. You can use Google Chrome or Internet Explorer. You can change platforms. They're aggregating browsers, nothing else. They own nothing. Everything belongs to you. Regarding copyrights, I will talk later. Question?
Yes, thank you very much. It's fascinating because I've also been looking into solid pods, so I love that you
recognize solid, right? Actually, all technologies exist. I didn't mention, but you're right.
So I'm actually, I'm sorry for everyone, I have a very technical question as well, because then if I understand it, the concept of solid pods, right, is that, these are the deployed applications, right, together with the data, aren't they? So you have a sort of API server that gives you everything together. And I would follow up with the question from earlier, how do you ensure then, especially if you work in a data space, future data space like Europeana, that there is standardized exchange formats that are actually separate from the deployed applications, because that is very important for sustainability. And understand that right, that the app and the data are mixed together in a pod. Thank you.
Yep. Let me answer the question about solid protocol. Mr. Tim Berners-Lee, when he invented solid, he made, I think not mistake, but he didn't see the complete picture. He created idea of the pod, and he said, well, pod will be visible by the browser of the user. He forgot about platforms. He made absolutely wonderful, fantastic invention, both solid protocol, etc. He forgot about platforms. We need platforms. And he completely throws them away. When he removed platforms, question was, okay, but where is the application? And then I said, yeah, it will be on the browser. It will never work. You cannot put the whole Facebook on your browser, sorry. You need Facebook, you need Booking.com, you need Uber, you need Easy Travel, you need platforms. Mr. Timberlake, he is not a businessman, he is scientist. So scientifically he created absolutely right things, but he forgot that we need, as a big society, we need platforms. So that's the only change we made with Solid. We inserted platforms between pod and the browser, and then it clicked because the whole linked data technology in the Solid protocol, it was created for computer to read it. Platforms are very good computer. They can read a lot of it. So it's improved Solid, let's put it this way. And yes, okay, let's. I'm trying to keep all the questions in my mind because I'm going to answer them later on in other slides. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have a question about sort of the economic part of that.
Oh, sure.
It looks like you're actually stealing the data from the platform.
No,
But-
they stole data from us first.
Yeah, but the situation.
I'm returning.
The situation is that the platforms own the data. They ask the users to upload, or the providers to upload their data through their interface.
We do.
So yeah. So
I'm a platform.
so that they have that now. Now you're actually telling them that they're going to lose that ownership.
Yes.
Is that something that they like?
No.
Or no? So there is something that you need to give them
Yes.
to give them the incentive
Exactly.
to give up the data ownership.
Yeah. Again, we will address later, but I can address now. Platforms, if they're not smart, they will not like it. Smart platforms will like it for the following reason. We are also tired of silos data. We platforms always have outdated copies. It's not convenient. We would like to work with the original as well. It's important for us. Also, it will allow me to expand my services. Imagine I am Easy Travel. Now I spend 20 million euro just to get to the museum world. So that they know it's huge investments in marketing. If I want to add hotels, I have to invest another 100 millions to get to hotel market. But with this technology, I am as a platform. If all hotels have the same similar ports, it will take me a fraction of a second to connect to all hotels. So I can expand my functionality to different domains. So I have advantages above other platforms. If I'm the first, I will create this metaverse. About metaverse, that's it. So we can expand it. So smart platforms we do, but on top of that, there are other players on the market who want this change. Companies which are on platforms, banks, mobile operators, hotels, we spoke with all of them, they love this idea. So we have so many actors on the market who are altogether larger than the biggest platforms, so we can do it. Here in Culture and Heritage, we have Europeana, by the way, they have power. So there are some stick and carrot methods, and we already developing it in 3 industries where platforms have to follow us. There are some tricks to do it from business point of view. I cannot dive first because we don't have time, but it's doable. Good. So that's a data space concept. And let's move on. I will answer some questions further. Data format inclusivity. Inclusivity is important word here. As Pavel said, there is no way we could have one data standard for everything. Not possible. So situation when we just put all this data and squeeze with some Procrustean rules, it's not doable. We all know. Well, let's do it a different way. Imagine I'm a person. What do? When I read some documents, I can read any formats. So why don't we teach computer to do efforts and to read any type of data from any port? Actually, we have a good answer: linked data. That's actually where we will use linked data, because linked data is not about linking things. Linked data, first of all, is about interpretation by the computer of your data. If you have all these ports with different formats, so every museum can put it in any way they want, but as long as this data is linked data, any platform which is flying over these ports and pick up data, it can interpret it. If this particular platform will not interpret it in the right way, we have competition, remember? So there are many other platforms who are ready to substitute it, so they will do it better. So competition is the engine which I'm going to fuel, which I'm going to use to force platforms to learn linked data and to interpret different data. From this moment, we don't have to create any standard. And speaking about standards, remember that it's not only about space, it's not about standards between South Africa and America, it's also about time. Because standards and data change in time. You may call this thing with one term together, today use one term, but tomorrow you invent another term. So how are you going to follow this time change of the standards? This system will do it. If you have linked data and all platforms will do it, yeah, you don't care. Let them all do whatever they want. That's the simple answer. Next request, data safety. It's a big thing. Actually, because we are talking about Web 3, and I'll explain later, let's recall other systems like web, email, internet. All our issues with security we have right now are only because of one thing. People who invented these great three things and others, they never ever thought about security. Zero. They just created TCP/IP, and then I spent 6 years working on IPsec later on. Never happened. SSL, it's not a solution, you know, if you're a specialist. Email, sorry, we are suffering from spam now. Anti-spam is disaster. Why don't we do, if we create something like Web3, why don't we put security in the first place? And it's not difficult, by the way, because to put security first, it doesn't mean algorithms or protocols. Whole security is only about managing keys and identities. Nothing else. If you have identified, authenticated people, the rest is piece of cake. And that's what we are going to do. So we are going to put really nice infrastructure for key distribution as a kind of pillars of the whole building, and then the whole building will be quite stable. So that's our approach to security. Well, I discussed with different organizations like Dutch Ministry of Internal Affairs, security companies, they love this idea. Framework to control usage of digital assets. Well, here is, we really need to understand, answering your question, we really need to understand who is the owner of things. But if you have security in place, if everybody has electronic passport, and with some help of notaries and timestamps, we really can establish author's rights. And again, because we have security in place, from one port to another, we can sell things and then establish this provenance system. So controlling provenance and original author's right is quite easy, again, if you have security in place. Again, it was discussed, it could be done quite easily. And then you have proper IP right management system in place. Again, we can talk about later outside of this room. But then you really understand who and where use your data. And that's very important for any cultural institution, because essentially we are moving from physical world to digital world. So this item we also, Pavel already shows that I don't have much time because of questions, but item 7 is really addressed here. Content usage, analytics, rating, reviews, etc. Well, usually if you use platforms, you get a lot of analytics. Platforms are great in providing analytics. Problem is, you have too many analytics. If you use 10 platforms, you get 10 analytical systems. How are you going to use it together? Again, if we politely ask platforms to return everything to this port, then all this raw data comes to a port from all platforms you use. And then you can use any analytical system like Google Analytics. Say, well, I have this raw data from 25 platforms. Could you please do something with that? And then you get your unified analytics, whatever you want. Not only that advantage you get. User feedback. Actually, it's also your data. Because your data is not only data you created yourself. Your data is also data created by users. And we remember that we want all our data to be stored on our port. Good. We would like to get all user feedback and reviews be returned to my port. Because if you look at hotel industry, value Booking.com partially because it collects all feedback from users. So even if hotel gets out of it, user feedback is left here. So Booking.com use user feedback as a kind of vendor lock-in function to keep you inside. User feedback should come to your port. And then we come to the idea that, we have our data and we have data about us, which is also important in this modern world, and it will be collected there. That's also advantage of this approach. That's it.
Oh.
Yeah, I come back. So actually, what we have done, we went through all these items, we addressed them all more or less, and trust me, security and other stuff is really developed here very well. I simply didn't have time. But essentially, on demand of Pavel, we managed to create this Web3 data space, which is quite consistent, which is based, by the way, on the technology of Tim Berners-Lee. and which answers all your questions.
The next slide is also yours.
Yes, it's about web.
Yes. Ah, all right. So,
Well,
yeah, so I think the very natural question here is really, we call this Web 3.0 data space, and the question is, why did we call it this way?
yeah, because if you search for Web 3.0 on Google, most probably you'll get a lot of blockchain projects. By the way, this project has nothing to do with blockchain. And answer is very simple. Let's recall this web evolution. Web 1 was situation when we had web on the left, browser on the right. You know how it works, very simple idea, 30 years ago. Then when we got too many websites, we needed aggregation. So if you want to book hotel, you need to really aggregate the booking.com to get hotel. So we got to this what we call Web 2, when instead of web, we got these platforms. So now you manually upload your data here. That's how the world looks today. What we essentially suggest is, say, guys, let's create Web 3, which takes platforms. Instead of web, we get pod, but it's just technicality. It's more or less the same. Oh yeah, data is not here. We really cross it out. So if you look at the schema, we take advantage of both schema. We take advantage of having data at your site, and we have advantage of using platforms. We love platforms. But these platforms will be without data. We will love them even more. And that's why we call it Web 3. So we have situation when we just, and if you look at the evolution of museums, it was questioned about this application. The guy on this video asked, what does it mean make application? Application is actually essentially creating your website in a way. So when museums want to create applications, they actually stay here. When they go to the platforms like Pavel did or Europeana did, you go to the Web 2. Okay, next level will be Web 3. So it's a natural evolution of things. So platforms are great, we just make mistake, too much data here, we correct mistake, remove data, done. It's about Web 3, so that's why we call it Web 3 data.
Thank you, Alex. To me, it is fascinating. Every time I hear you new.
Yeah. Oh, good question.
Please, question time.
So if you're saying that the feedback and the analytics goes back to the pod.
Yep.
And then they can then use
Another
platform to clean it and understand it. If you're operating the platform, how do you, and you want your own individual analytics about how you relate to the pod, can you access that?
Yes, of course. It's not you, actually.
I mean, sorry, if you're platform oriented, not pod oriented.
Actually, it's not platform which will access data. There will be always people behind it. So it probably will be one employee of your museum, or it will be your client who will want to use this particular platform to access your data. Because as the owner of the pod, you will provide access not to platforms, you will provide access to specific people. Whatever platform they use, you don't care. It's like email. You send email to a person, you don't care which mail he used. You send email to a person. So you authorize people, you don't authorize platforms. Platforms are, platforms. Platforms are just browsers. Yeah, he can use, or she can use one platform, another platform, who cares? As long as he or she is authorized to come to your data and do something with that. So authorization is important. Authorization given to these people, not to the platforms. These platforms will be certification process, but it's another story. So from this moment, we don't think about platforms. For example, if you're a person and you publish a post, you will not talk in the language, I publish post on Facebook. No, you just publish post. And whether it will be Facebook or LinkedIn, who cares? Your colleagues, your friends will choose the platform to check your post. You just publish. You publish your skill, you can translate from English to Spanish. It's okay, you don't care which platforms will sell you. So people will think in terms of, I just publish, I just expose myself, I'm not exposed, my resume for example, and let platforms compete to sell you in the best way. Platforms are not important anymore.
You mentioned this. Are there any questions? Okay, so the questions come. I have a question. You mentioned this pod all the time. So can you tell a bit more? What is this technology? Does it exist already, or where do we get one?
It was already discussed a little bit. Actually, it was Mr. Tim Berners-Lee, the guy who invented the Web 1, the guy who invented the linked data, and the guy who invented this pod and the special protocol. So the guy actually invented everything. The pod as a concept exists. It exists as standardization committee inside W3 consortium, which develops web standards. frankly speaking, it's still at the low level development. So the pod exists, the solid protocol exists to access it. The only difference between pod and web and solid and GP is that this is created for people and this is created for computers. So it's computer readable protocol, computer readable data. And well, it requires further development in this solid committee. Essentially exists. Actually, we already know the case that Flanders, the government of Flanders, half a year ago, they bought 7 million pods for people in Flanders to deal with financial services. So it's not fairy tale anymore. It's actually already being deployed. Still, it's a very low level project, but it works. It's all real.
Any questions, please? Helen.
Two even. Well, really interesting. By the way, also yesterday there was a presentation in the Netherlands of the Flemish solid project. So it's interesting to see the kind of follow-up. One question is the role of Europeana within this. Is that then on the pod side? And the other one is, I guess, but I would like to have that confirmed if it's in the pod also a combination of information that would be available to everyone versus information that's only available to certain users. For example, I work at the archive, not every user can see everything. I would guess with also kind of authentication that you can make something for that.
I'll start from the second question because first one will be addressed by Pavel. Actually, I mentioned very briefly that security will be based on key distribution. You'll get your key, your special e-passport. Actually, it's certificate in cryptography language, but you don't care. You'll get some passport. So every person will have quite a hardware key. It will be on SIM card or under your skin, whatever you want. So you'll be very strongly authenticated. And as archive, you'll provide access to very specific people. Again, you will not care what platforms they use, but you'll provide access to very specific people, and only they will be able to read or read and write. You know, you define your rules. Security will be very well developed here, unlike, by the way, Solid. Solid is not very secure at the moment. Again, Solid is created in a way, let's do everything without security. We really pay a lot of attention to security. We consult with specialists, so you'll have complete control over your pod. Otherwise, it will never work. And yeah. And of course, pod itself will be quite complicated operating system. It will have different copies of your data from different, so it will be time machine inside. So it will be, these copies will be spread through different providers. So it will be quite a reliable machine. And but Europeana will have nothing to do with pod. Europeana will have something to do with politics about it. I know what Pavel is going to talk about.
Let's do, let's say coordination. It's a better word. Yes, please. We have time for questions. For sure, for this kind of question.
Yes, okay, thank you. My name is Vasilis Zouvaras, and I would like to give some additional information regarding the Flanders that you said. It's a collaboration between the W3C and IMEC from Belgium. That's why you see so many pods in Belgium. So they created together with Tim Berners-Lee. Actually, Ruben Bergdorf is.
Yeah, Ruben is involved, and also in Rapt company.
Yes. And there are certain difficulties in the technical side of this.
I know.
If you take the database out of an application, it's not that easy. I mean, it's not just to take the database and everything works very well. Traditional services work with the backend and the frontend. If the frontend is somewhere else and the backend is somewhere else, it's very technically difficult to create such an architecture. That's one. And second is that when you don't talk about standards, you cannot talk about linked open data. Linked open data is about semantic standard.
Of course.
So Max was right that you should have included on those elements there also the standardization, because if you don't talk about standards, how these pods are interoperable between them, among them. So if a platform has to deal with 1 million pods and each pod is using a different structure, then this is not a data silo, it's data silo on the 20th. I mean, that very difficult.
You're right, I didn't have time today to dive into linked data too much. You're right, you have to do work with semantics, ontologies, and all the stuff. But in general, actually, we have special white paper on that. It will be dynamic ontologies. So it's very important that these things will be developed in time. And actually, that's the role of platforms. Frankly speaking, I'm a little bit always afraid of standards, standard committees. And I think, and we discussed with some data linking.
W3C standards, not any kind of standards. I'm talking about the W3C standards.
Yeah, W3 standards will be established. Solid or DID standard
Solid is
for
not a standard yet.
Of
Sorry,
course.
I would like to conclude by saying that this is a very nice idea, a very nice technology, but needs some years in front to work on different aspects in order to make it mature. And it's quite difficult to persuade Facebook, Amazon, and the rest to take their data. And I mean, it's also this economical and political part of it. These companies own 3/4 of the earth. You cannot just go there
I
and
know.
say your data.
Trust me,
your data.
Facebook will be the last company I'm going to visit. And actually, the first companies I visited were banks and mobile operators and hotels. Hotels are suffering now from 20% they pay to booking clubs. So my pitch there, guys, you will reduce from 20 to 1%. And then hotels started to move. So that's how we do. We don't go to Facebook, we go to small company, to other companies, not platform. But again, I don't want to go to business. To answer your question, yes, Solid is not yet perfect thing, for sure. And what you see here is a project which was derived from quite a small project of developing Jewish heritage roots. So you see the outcome of this project, and this outcome already, as I said, discussed with very many serious organizations. So we are in discussion, and it's definitely a way forward, because Solid is a good thing, but it requires platforms. The Solid team, I think, didn't pay enough attention to platform cooperation with platform. But okay, we can correct it.
Alex, let me continue, because I think in my concluding remarks, I think we are going to address some concerns. So, thank you, Alex. Yeah, as you see, as Alex said, this is not special for heritage. A lot of different domains, as were mentioned today, hotels, education platforms, mobile, they all suffer from the same things: data silos, these aggregation chains. Of course, every domain has its own specifics, but the fundamental challenges that we need to solve are shared. So this group, JHN, Jewish Heritage, is a part of the interdisciplinary group which is called Post Platforms, which is led by Easy Travel and by the Erasmus University. And we are, it's a collective in which we are exploring the promotion of these ideas, these new visions into very different domains. And again, domains have their own specifics, and Vasilis, these domains will come, of course, in their own timing, and some will be more difficult, and some will come last. But what's unique about heritage, as opposed to other domains, and also getting back to that, our project, also about tourism, is that we have Europeana. Europeana, which is the leader of this domain, which has enough gravitas to represent a lot of small players and can stand collectively on their behalf to platforms. And this is how, this is very important to realize. The transition may happen gradually. It's not today Web 2, tomorrow Web 3. We need only 2 or 3 forward-looking platforms who are willing to switch to the new way of data sharing. We need to have a couple of strong content producers, content operators, content aggregators, or museums. We need to have a think tank, a regulator, and off we go. The change will start accelerating. And it's really funny, it's not funny, I think there's maybe some deep sense in that well, while heritage is traditionally looked at as very lagging behind in terms of technology, and actually in this transition, we can take the lead, because we have this ability, differently from the Facebooks and differently from the Booking.com, where the fight will be much more violent. We have the ability to really lead the way in terms of how people share data, because we think that, as also Harry mentioned today, we are already ahead of the game with our own data space. We have the Europeana, which actually can find a totally new meaning for itself here. It can orchestrate this change. It can
sorry for interrupting. And platforms which operate in culture and heritage, they are small. They're not Facebook. I'm Easy Travel. I'm probably one of the largest platforms in culture and heritage, but I'm really small. So it's quite easy to persuade us. Let's put it this way.
Yeah. So this is how we think. This is where we think the new role of Europeana should be, or the enhanced role of Europeana should be, to be the advocate, to be the evangelist, to be the conductor of this change across the heritage field. And let me finish with my slide, and then we'll have another 3 minutes for questions. So let's get back to reality. What are our current next steps to promote this vision? First, we have our own project, Jewish History Tours, and within this project, we still have 6 months to promote these ideas, in addition to other ideas, to identify stakeholders who can pick up on that. We know that the data space for tourism is coming up, right, Hannah? And so I think these are the people with whom we need to start discussing this, how we can really connect the fields using these ideas. We are going to apply for European funding. We have already started this. We submit the proposal, which we called, unsurprisingly, Web 3.0 for cultural heritage. It was not selected in this round. We're going to improve it and resubmit it next year. And we are very much inviting aggregators. It's about basically re-engineer Europeana aggregation along those lines.
Well, it's because you forgot to put data space here. That's why you failed.
Yes. So we're going to correct this and some other things, but we're really inviting the aggregators. We now have the French aggregator interested, the Italian aggregator interested, the Romanian, of course, the Jewish aggregator, but there are more. There are some projects, a couple of running projects, and some projects which start also to experiment with this in other domains. We're doing very interesting work, Susan, with the Israeli Ministry of Heritage about this. We have conversations with Europeana on different levels about the feasibility of this vision for adoption as the Europeana data space, the data space for heritage. And most importantly, we need you. We need your questions, we need your feedback, we need your criticism, because again, this is about democratization. The more people in the community connect to these ideas, the more ammunition we will give to Europeana to represent us strongly in promoting them on their level. It really comes from the field. So we need people in the room, people online, and elsewhere. We need your feedback. We're very serious about that. We have a lot of conversations these days with different people in the field. Please come, talk to us, write to us, mail to us. So I'll conclude what we did today. We first talk about the project. Let's not forget about this. And we started with a very important statement. Let's use platforms, existing platforms. Let's not develop new tech. We're still subscribed to that with our both hands. Let's invest into developing content instead of doing technology. However, Web 3.0 data space also gives us the opportunity to rethink our relationships with those platforms. And we put forth a very specific and concrete proposal, as you've seen today, for a data space architecture. And yes, we're at this phase where your feedback is crucial for this to move on. We have time for questions, additional questions? Please, Marco.
I got the the microphone. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was one thing that I didn't understand in sort of the diagrams. As far as I understand, Europeana is a platform, because institutions provide their data to Europeana, and then Europeana has a database. If you're going back to, let's say, the pods, you really want the pods to be at the cultural heritage institutions, and you want to take away the data from Europeana. Is that correct?
Well,
Europeana is like
Europeana
a platform, and
yeah.
you're taking away the data from Europeana and bring it back to the providers. Is that correct?
Europeana is a constantly evolving organization. It started with Web 1.0. It started with being a website. And then around 2002, 3, 4, when platforms were very much in fashion, Europeana rebranded, rethought itself as a platform. Okay? First of all, we don't think this is the end play for Europeana. Europeana will keep evolving. And we see that Europeana's role will change, and it can happen gradually, into a proponent of this change in the field. So when all the museums will have their own pods, when all the museums will share data via pods with aggregators, with Europeanas, and with the external stakeholders, then Europeana will be a much more impactful organization than the aggregator of this content.
No data. We don't have other data.
It will be able to choose. It will be able to build its own portal always. Anyone can build a portal. But the value of data aggregated to Europeana will not be as strong as the value of Europeana as the proponent of those changes.
But it might happen that Europeana will say, yeah, I don't want to be a platform anymore. It might happen. Why not? But finally, the goal of Europeana not to be a platform. The goal of Europeana to make sure that data is available to people. You can do it with platform. You can do it with all this.
It's not
political.
Thank you. We have another question by Marco, the last one. Milena. And we are
Thank you
very
for
quickly, please.
the presentation. Actually, my question is a bit of an extension, maybe a bit more specific question than to Max's question. What's your vision on the role of the IIIF protocol in this architecture? Because we see IIIF gaining momentum. We see it changing from an image interoperability platform to an information interoperability platform, which is really taking on sharing information like georeferencing and so on. So how does I think IIIF works very well in the concept that Max describes, that the data owner, the institution, can use that without constantly copying all the data to different issues. It can be derived from the institution that maintains that information. So how does IIIF fit into your?
Yeah, we don't have a ready-made answer, but thank you for the question. I think very cautiously that yes, IIIF is in a way a narrow interpretation of this vision. So I think this goes way broader than IIIF, but IIIF can be used as a use case, and maybe it will evolve towards being one of the formats or towards being a sort of a pod. But again, this is a very preliminary answer. We'll think about this. Thank you.
Wow.
Okay.
I see two more questions.
Maybe.
Of course, we can also answer questions.
Yeah, maybe we need to conclude the session. The time is up, but please come to us and we'll discuss it. Thank you.